Minister. It's been a week now since you made that incredibly powerful speech in the Commons. What's it been like for you?
A little bit crazy, to be honest. I thought it might have a little bit of an impact, but it's gone mad. I mean, we've had thousands and thousands of emails, some of which are truly heartbreaking, an awful lot of media attention, and it's just been a bit overwhelming. And my poor staff, I mean, I didn't warn them and I had no idea it would go crazy, but their workload's kind of doubled, all of them, and they've been utterly brilliant. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and we're sitting here in your office, of course, surrounded by your staff.
Yeah.
So have you had a lot of emails
Yes.
from other people who've been through
Thousands.
similar experiences?
Yeah, and I sort of end up reading them sometimes at kind of 2, 3 in the morning and just weeping, because some of the situations are horrific. And people whose mothers have been abused for decades, just describing. One chap wrote to me and said he'd have to write to me because his mother couldn't, and her emails were looked at, and it's just really heartbreaking that he'd grown up in that household and he knew it was wrong. He was in his 20s now. I just thought, wow, it's shocking.
And why did you make the personal decision to stand up in the Commons and do that? Because that's pretty brave. You're a public figure, and that's a very public chamber. It's a very public platform to tell people about it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought when you get elected to this place, you get lobbied by lots of charities and NGOs, and they come along, these really lovely, well-meaning people, and they talk to you about statistics and how we need to fund refuges and things. But it's all very well hearing speaker after speaker say that in the chamber, but if no one out of 650 people say, actually, I know what it's like, I know a little bit about what you're going through, then I just thought it was about time someone did that, really. And everyone's always watching politicians as though they're somehow, that they're removed and they're different, but actually we're ordinary people and we've gone through those things ourselves. I thought it was important. Yeah,
because you said in that speech, domestic violence has many faces, and the faces of those who survive it are varied too. And I think it did really smash some stereotypes about the kinds of people who are affected by domestic abuse, because for an MP to be affected by it, and the way we view MPs is that you're very much in control of your own lives and your agenda, and you're fighting for other people's equality and fighting to overcome other people's situations, and to be fighting your own situation, it must have been tough to be going through that as an MP at the time. Yeah, it was very nice. But again, the stereotype issue, it's all about working class estates, like I mentioned, and it's a class sort of lens that we look through, isn't it, often? And actually, I've spoken to some of the police here, and it's, people don't discriminate whether they're going to sort of be violent against someone wealthy and in a kind of gilded cage situation, or if they are in a working class estate. And I think there is that image in the media, isn't there, that, it's only certain types who are in that situation, and that's not true at all. And looking back now at what it was like, did you kind of realise at the time just how much pressure? We can't go into, unfortunately, the specifics of the case, because for legal reasons it's difficult to do that. But did you realise at the time, just how much pressure you were under, having a job in the public limelight and then facing this difficult situation at home too? Yeah, I mean, it sort of crept up, and it was kind of over about a year and a half or so. And like I sort of said when I spoke, it was getting harder and harder to go home. And you get to the stage where you're in this really quite difficult and quite draining job, like lots of jobs are, but this, all the stuff over Brexit, the kind of voting till 2, 3 in the morning sometimes, and just staying here and needing to wind down. Home should be somewhere where you can just relax, just kick your shoes off, and maybe even have someone make a cup of tea for you. But if you walk in the door and there's hostility straight away, it's pretty difficult to deal with, actually, yeah. And did you feel as though you had to put a brave face on it because you were an MP? Yeah, and because I was telling myself it would all get better and it would all be okay, or it would all go back to how it was. Because you don't know what the turning point is. You don't know why someone is behaving that way or what made them switch, and you're just longing to get back to how it was and the good times. So you just keep thinking, well, I'll keep going and then it might get better. And it didn't, it got worse and worse. So having come out the other end of it now, looking back, what do you think you would say to your previous self, the person who was in that situation? I think I would tell myself to listen to my intuition more, to believe myself and my friends when they were sort of going, hang on a sec, and to stop doubting my own feelings, I think, and just to listen when it felt wrong, and to stop giving that person chance after chance after chance. I think I wasted too much time doing that. Do you feel sad about the time that you that you lost?
A little bit, yeah, because I think I would have been more present in this job. I think I would have been getting more enjoyment out of this amazing thing that happened to me, rather than coping with that and coping with the same level of strangeness and hostility at home as we sometimes get online and things. And it was just all a bit too much, to be honest, yeah.
Do you think you're fully over it now?
No. No, actually. No, I mean, there was a recent incident that sort of brought it back to me just before I spoke, and I occasionally get sort of, I suppose you could call them flashbacks, at some of the things that I'd sort of parked and had to get on with my job about, but I think it's getting better, yeah.
What did it do to your confidence overall, do you think?
I think it just makes you doubt yourself, because this person is telling you how much they love you, but their behaviour is exactly the opposite of that. So you're so confused and you don't really understand what message to take from that. And I think the term gaslighting is used quite a lot, because you're being told that these things are in your mind as well. If you call someone out on something and you say, hang on, I don't like the way you spoke to me, or however you say it, they'll be like, but it's you're the one. So they're constantly turning it round to you as though you're imagining it, or crazy, or you're the hostile one. You know for a fact you're not like that, but it can make your head just spin.
And you gave some words of comfort to other people who've been through it when you made that speech, and you said, reach out if it's safe to do so. We'll hold your hand as an MP, as you said. What other advice would you have for people who might be listening to this and thinking, actually, I'm in a bit of a bad place myself?
I think the number one thing is that the advice that I give isn't as an expert at all, and what I'm really wary of is telling someone to leave, because that can be really, really dangerous. And don't do that without getting things in place. Speak to an expert, speak to one of the confidential free phone helplines, speak to a friend, just reach out, and that person will always confirm that it isn't just you're not imagining it, and that's the first step, I think.
Okay. Well, look, you share a passion for this issue alongside a previous Prime Minister, Theresa May, who also made it one of her priorities in government, and now you're Prime Minister. We're going to make you Prime Minister for the next half an hour, and you can do whatever you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, you say you'd hate it, but you can enjoy the power for half an hour.
Okay.
So you go in through that Downing Street door, and let's just have a bit of fun for a couple of minutes first.
Okay.
So you're Prime Minister, you sit down at your desk. Who's the first person you'd love to invite around for dinner, do you think?
Oh my gosh, that's just impossible. Someone amazing like David Attenborough, I think.
Yeah.
But I did meet him in Parliament, and you don't know what to say, because there's this legendary person in front of you, and you kind of think, what on earth have I got to say that person will have any interest in whatsoever? So being able to sit down and actually speak to someone like that would be amazing, actually. I'd love it. Yeah.
And you've got to work through your red box as well. It's going to be piling up as soon as you get into Downing Street. You can pour yourself a drink though, and take your time over it.
Okay.
What would be your kind of tipple of choice, just so we can get to know you a bit?
I'm so girly in my drink choice, so I'm afraid I'd have to go for, a bit like Diane Abbott, I'd have to go for a can of M&S mojito or pina colada, which is my absolute favourite.
Just don't drink it on the tube.
Yeah, I know.
And what would be the first meal you cook yourself?
Oh my God, would I have to cook my own meals?
Well,
Are you
I just
kidding?
assume, because you're very down to earth. Well, you can call it a chef if you want.
I'm Bridget Jones in the kitchen. There's no point in putting me in the kitchen. I'd have to have a heat up or something, or sushi. I live on sushi, I'm afraid.
Do you?
That's so middle class, but I do. Yeah.
Let's talk about your path to Downing Street, because you've been an MP for 2 years now. You're the MP for Canterbury. You worked as a teaching assistant and as a comedy writer before that. What kind of comedy did you write?
Political satire, of all things, for puppets.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That must have been quite fun. Did you know you wanted to get into politics ultimately, though?
I suppose I can't remember not being interested in politics. Yeah, and my dad was a policeman in the City of London, so politics was just in our house. He was kind of literally on the front line of it. It was what we talked about all the time. I was obsessed with the news. ITV news, actually, I'm afraid.
Thanks.
From a really, really early age. So, I was just a bit kind of bonkers about it. And I remember watching women in Parliament and knowing that women could do that. And that was quite new, Diane Abbott and Harriet Harman and people. And then we had a woman Prime Minister. And just watching it thinking, wow. But it never occurred to me that I'd be one of them, never.
And when you were elected, it was quite a big surprise, because Canterbury had never had a non-Conservative MP before.
Yeah.
Was it a surprise to you too?
Huge shock, yeah. I mean, people kept saying, what a lovely surprise. And for weeks, it was almost a dream sequence. People would sort of speak to me about it and I'd be like, who are they talking about? What is that? And then I came to an event here, probably 5 or 6 weeks after being elected, and there was a badge which said Rosie Duffield MP. I thought, oh, okay, that's real. And it took that long, and I thought, oh, okay, I am actually an MP. It took a really long time. That sounds mad, but it's true.
Were people kind of surprised in Canterbury as well? Because
Oh, yeah.
it was quite a big upset
People
there,
were very
wasn't it?
surprised. Yeah, but I think what really annoyed me was the amount of people that said, I've just won £2,000. I'm like, really? Didn't occur to me to tell my dad to have a bet or something. But I
you
still
missed
get
out
these
there.
emails going, thank you so much, I won £500, I've had a really nice holiday. I'm like, God, so annoying.
And your majority is small.
Tiny weeny.
Yeah, 187. That's tough.
Yeah.
You must get the sweats thinking about a snap general election.
No, because I do nothing differently. I mean, I worked as though I was going to win, even though I knew there was no chance. So I'd just do the same thing, and I've really worked hard in the last couple of years. So I hope people recognise that and that my majority goes up a little bit.
Looking at the broader picture, do you think it will be tough for Labour to hold on to seats like yours? Because you're going to have a bit of a challenge from the Lib Dems, and
Yeah, but that's great, isn't it?
you've got a very young
cannot-
seat, haven't you? There's quite a big
Yes.
student population, just to explain what I'm
But
on about
none of
there.
us should be complacent, and nobody should take that for granted. I think when you do, that's time to go. So you have to work for every single vote, and certainly in a seat like mine, it depends on a coalition of votes. You know, I'm not going to win just by getting all of the Labour votes or just by getting all of the Remain votes. I have to talk to people and find out exactly what they want in an MP and if I'm doing it right. And that's great, that's a challenge, otherwise I'd be bored.
Okay, let's get back to you being Prime Minister now.
Okay.
And you've got to make your first speech as Prime Minister. What's the kind of personal anecdote or maybe the sort of personal message you might build into that speech to explain a bit about your politics and what drives you and what
I
matters
think
to
I'd
you?
like to talk about being a single parent and just ordinary people and just saying, you know, we're not different and we're not, some of us might be, but I mean, I'd never met anyone like some of the people on the opposite benches. You know, the people I know are the people like me that got elected when they were nurses or teachers or trade union reps. So I just want people to understand that if I can do it, anyone can. It doesn't matter your background. So I think a speech like that, just reassuring people that we are the House of Commons, we're the House of common people that represent ordinary people. And I hope people start believing in that and stop seeing us as this elite group of people, because we're not, we're just ordinary.
Yeah, because often something that we hear as journalists when we go out and about is, oh, they're all the same, those
I
politicians.
know, that's sad.
Yeah, it is sad actually, because you're not all the same.
No,
But then you must have had a shock when you came here too at the kind of people you do rub up against.
just the fact that I was allowed in was a shock, and it still is. And for ages and ages I was saying to the doorkeepers, the chaps that kind of literally stand by the door and help you around, and women, not just chaps, I would say things like, well, can I do that? And am I allowed? And they'd be like, madam, this is your house. And it took ages to kind of convince them, please don't call me that, it's really weird. You know, so now they all call me by my first name, and I think most of us prefer that, because otherwise it is a bit strange, yeah.
And you've made some good friends as well since you came here. I think that's another thing that people don't realise about politics, is it's like any other workplace. You make friends, you get along with certain people, you don't get along with certain other people. And you know, there was a lot of those MPs were huddled around you when you made that speech last week, for example.
Yeah.
What's it been like making new friends, and
It's
who's your best
lovely.
friend? And
It's really lovely, because you're here so many hours, as you know, the journalists are the same, so sometimes you're here till the early hours of the morning, and if you don't have that bunch of people to sit in between votes with or to talk about everything with, it must be really awful. And I'm really lucky, I've got people like Jess Phillips to chat to, who is absolutely hilarious. My absolute darling friend Bambos Jamalambos, who is the kindest person in the world.
also has the
And
best name when the
He's got
speaker calls
name,
it.
exactly.
The speaker really enjoys calling
He's
Bambos'
brilliant
name.
at that, isn't he? And just all of my lot really, but some people from other parties as well. And you know, it's important to say we don't all hate each other. We're human beings, and we have to talk about all kinds of things. And it's really important to keep each other going.
Okay, so as Prime Minister, you can pass any law you want to, literally anything. What's the first law that you'd pass, do you think?
I
or
think
the
I'm
first thing you'd
supposed to
tackle?
say something like free ice cream for everyone, but actually it's so much more boring. I would really like us to work in a cross-party capacity on loads of things. I'd kind of quite like, I don't know if we should, I'm not into banning things or anything. I think, I don't know, do we want a law on it? But just things like coming to conclusions about how to save the NHS or climate change. I think I'd like some kind of law where it can't just be changed every 5 years because we didn't like what the last lot did.
Okay.
We've got to come up with a cross-party way of looking far into the future and planning long term for those things.
And more consensus in politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, do you like the idea of governments of national unity? I know there's very specific debate about that going on at the moment with regards to Brexit, but more generally speaking, do you think
I mean, but look at our voting system. You know, I know a lot of people that vote for the Green Party or, you know, other parties that sort of aren't here. We've got one Green MP. So looking at that kind of thing and the way that we collaborate more, especially on those issues, I think is really, really important. And it's the way forward, a bit more like Europe. You know, we have this kind of more representative way of doing things, I think.
It's a really interesting debate actually starting to form around that, because something that I'm fascinated by at the moment is the voting system that we do have, because actually 2005 was the last general election that really delivered a decisive result. Cameron got a very small majority in 2015. Yeah. And for a long time, people have defended first past the post by saying, oh, but it delivers decisive government and we have clear majorities and therefore we can get stuff done in our politics. Actually, it's been really difficult to get anything done.
Yeah, but let's be really honest. It benefits me, it benefits my party and the Conservatives because, you know, we just have the two of us dominating everything. But actually, there is more nuance in politics now. And Brexit as well, you've seen the divide across families in the country, and you don't necessarily belong to one of those 2 or 3 camps. So I think we do have to start modernising a bit and just start thinking more about ideas and where the lines blur. And we don't necessarily all fit into these, and you cannot take votes for granted anymore. There is no such thing as a traditional Labour voter, I don't think, or traditional Tory anymore, which
Not
at least
Brexit.
makes us have to work. Exactly.
So do you think maybe there might be an argument for changing the voting system?
Absolutely. I think we should look at it really seriously, yeah.
Because obviously there was a referendum back in 2011 on AV.
I'm not sure people knew enough about it, and I think some of those proportional representation systems aren't necessarily just right. We need to look at how's that going to work, how can we modernise that, and what is the best way forward. And there are so many clever people out there who could probably come up with some really good ideas, actually.
Because one of the arguments about Brexit is that actually if we were more used in this country to consensus politics and building coalitions, then maybe Theresa May would have got together with the Labour Party back in 2016, 2017 and come up with a plan that could get through Parliament. But instead we've got this adversarial style of politics. So even though she's in a minority government, she still couldn't face the prospect of getting around the table with Jeremy Corbyn. We've got to talk about Brexit as well, because unfortunately as Prime Minister it's going to be on your desk, isn't it? Let's be honest. You can do whatever you want though. I mean, would you just revoke Article 50 because you're not a big fan of Brexit?
Oh, I'm a huge hater of Brexit and I'm a big Ramona. I mean, obviously I would love secretly to kind of wave a wand and go back in time and not have had that referendum. But we are where we are, and I think as a Prime Minister I can't just ignore half the country. So we have to have some kind of compromise. I'm not sure what it is. For my constituency, I want to remain, and I'll always fight for that. And I would love a people's vote, just to make sure we're getting it right. And whatever deal goes forward, we've got to just say, look, is this what you really wanted? So maybe I'd make that law, people's vote, I don't know.
Are you kind of hoping your party might shift closer towards that position in time for the general election, which we
If I'm being selfish, if it's
soon.
about my part of Kent, then obviously, yes, because we are on the front line and we're next to Europe, we've got the European University, all of those things are really damaged by Brexit. But, you know, I've got to think about everyone else as well, so we do need to get somewhere, don't we? I don't know where.
Yeah. Do you worry about your party going into the next election with the current policy position, because it's turning you on?
I think it's been seen to be really confusing and people aren't quite sure where we stand, but maybe this is the way forward. It does seem to me that Jeremy is trying to get those two sides together a bit more. If we can do that, it feels a bit late to be doing that, but if that works, then great. You know, maybe that is the way forward, who knows?
You mentioned Jeremy Corbyn's name. Talking of him, you have had a couple of scrapes with your local party. Because you've been quite outspoken about anti-Semitism, for example, and there was that motion of censure that they were going to bring against you, and then they withdrew it. Has that been tough? Because, you know, you won, despite all the predictions, you won this seat, and then actually fairly quickly started to get a bit of flack from your own local party.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it in perspective. It's less than 2% of my local members, actually, but it was just a big sort of headline-grabbing thing. It wasn't particularly helpful, I have to be honest. And I cannot, to this day, see why standing up against anti-Semitism, which is a plain wrong in my eyes, is seen as a sort of anti-Jeremy Corbyn move. We haven't done enough as a party. We haven't, done anything like what we need to do, and I'm still really angry about some of the stuff that's happened, and I'm not going to be quiet about it, and we need to do better.
And some of your colleagues in the Labour Party were so angry that they left the party.
Yeah.
Have you been tempted to think about leaving?
I think given the state of politics at the moment, everyone is having doubts about all sorts of things, and certainly I'm not proud of the party over anti-Semitism. We have to get it right quite quickly. Yeah.
And you think they've got to get it right?
Yes.
If they want to keep you?
I think not just me. I think a lot of people are very upset and very hurt, and the damage needs to be undone, if at all possible, by working with Jewish groups and Jewish colleagues. And it really needs to happen quite fast. Yeah.
And there was a lot of upset too at conference about Tom Watson, and it just feels every time there's an opportunity for Labour to get its message across, there's some kind of internal warfare.
We're really notorious for washing our dirty linen in public. The other side are just as divided, if not worse, actually, because it does feel more unified now in the Labour Party than it has done, believe it or not. But those messages aren't getting across in terms of Brexit and things. The other side are really split, but we're really bad at kind of playing that down. Perhaps we're more honest, I don't know. Yeah.
We're going to have to wrap this up fairly soon. So is there anything else you want to do as Prime Minister before I have to withdraw you from Downing Street?
It's so pious sounding, I'm afraid, but I'd love to eliminate child poverty and the 2-child limit on universal credit, and I'd like to eliminate homelessness if at all possible.
Okay, they are ambitious goals, but worthy goals nonetheless. Quick fire round, because this is always the fun way to finish, right?
Okay.
Who'd be your style icon as Prime Minister?
That's impossible. Oh my gosh.
Do you think Theresa May?
She looks amazing all the time, I have to say.
I quite liked Theresa May's style.
I don't know if she has a stylist. She must have.
Yeah, I don't know. She's always had quite a strong sense of her own style, I think.
And can I just say, Stephen Morgan on my side.
Okay.
Such a brilliantly dressed MP.
Really?
Yeah,
I have to check that out now. I've not come across his style.
Just put in loads of clips of him looking amazing at this point, because he's always perfectly dressed.
Top tip, because I always think men in Parliament are really dressed so boringly.
It's
like navy suits, 90% of them navy suits, aren't they?
Yeah, well,
why
Peter
do we think
Kyle,
that?
come on, seriously. Peter looks amazing.
Yeah, Peter
in anything.
has and some of the
Everything he
SNP
wears.
MPs actually are quite
that's
daring.
true.
But
It's
I just
hard to
always
get
think,
away
why
with
do we-
yellow,
Why do we always assume a male Prime Minister has to wear a navy suit? What's that
Yeah,
about?
that is a bit dull. Stephen for Prime Minister, then you'll see.
Okay, right. We'll have to get him on the podcast. Where would you love to go on holiday as Prime Minister, do you think? Where do you enjoy
never
going?
go on holidays. That's like really impossible. Somewhere fairly warm, but not too... Do you know, actually, no. I've always wanted to go to Iceland. And I still haven't been, so I'd like to go there.
Yeah, I quite fancy going to Iceland as well. Right, this is a bit crazy, this one, but snog, marry, avoid.
Okay.
Boris Johnson.
Oh, avoid.
David Cameron.
Oh,
and Dominic Raab.
God. Oh,
You've got
that's
to snog
just
one of them.
awful. I've got to snog one of them.
Sorry.
That's literally impossible. I suppose Dominic Raab might be the least worst option. Sorry, Dominic. I don't know him personally at all.
That means you've got to marry
he
David
probably
Cameron,
feels exactly the same. Oh my God. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
I think that probably is
Do you think that's okay?
the combination
How would that work?
for you, but knowing you.
Thanks.
It probably fits you the best. Right, what would your song be at party conference? Do you think?
That is just impossible. Literally, I'd need ages to think about that. Suggest something. I don't know.
What kind of music do you like?
I've got such wide taste in music. It's impossible. And actually, I haven't listened to anything for so long.
But what was the
My
first...
kids will kill me if my answer's wrong. They genuinely will.
How old are your
God,
children?
20 and 16, and I embarrass
Okay.
them all the time. I took them to a Childish Gambino gig and then got called back, actually, because there were votes, and I was gutted. But they were like, yeah, fine, she's gone now. She's not embarrassing me. I wasn't allowed to sit with them. So that was kind of...
This is all normal, though,
I like
right?
Elbow, but that's so middle-aged, isn't it?
No, you can
Adele,
like
that's
Elbow. There's nothing wrong
middle-aged
with
as
that.
well.
What was the first single you bought? Maybe that could be your song.
No, because that's just really. I know I like music of nowadays, which is why my kids want to kill me, because I listen. Although they call me a grandma because I've been listening to Drake quite a lot lately, and they're like, really.
You're not a regular mum. You're a cool mum.
I
It's a
try
bit like that Mean
and be a
Girls
little
quote.
bit, but you know when you think you're cool, you're just obviously really not at all. So yeah.
Okay, and then last of all,
Okay.
the killer question: would you ever want to be Prime Minister? Do
No,
you think?
no. Who
Honestly.
would want that job?
Loads of people want it.
Just,
Those
really?
of MPs want it. Yeah,
Why?
loads of them.
I can't imagine why you'd want that job. You can't do anything right, and everyone knows where you live, and everyone looks at everything you do. No, awful. How would you go into the supermarket? How would you be normal? No, I'd hate it. Hate
What
it.
would be a nice level for you then? Maybe to get into the cabinet and have a portfolio that you really care about, or
I suppose, yeah, everyone wants that, don't they? But yeah, that's about as much power as I want. But I'm really happy being a backbencher.
Yeah.
Actually, I really am. You can kind of get away with lots and do what you want. And
focus on the
that's
things you
really
care
fun.
about rather
Yeah.
than following party
Yeah,
lines.
and you can do as much constituency work as you've got time for, and you don't necessarily. If you're a minister, how do you go and meet local people?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the most fun stuff. So.
Okay, well look, it's been an absolute joy to interview you. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. And I think a lot of people would say too, bravo for the speech last week. It was incredibly powerful.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.